Hi guys, it's very late Friday afternoon. I'd planned on heading down to Athena a few hours ago to get started on this weekend's DIY fun, but I'm stuck here at work and it's gonna be another few hours until I'm ready to leave. To celebrate my upcoming 3-year anniversary of uploading videos to YouTube, I figured it might be fun to force you guys to watch or endure one of my earliest uploads. Now, fear not, it's under 2 minutes long, and I really do think it's going to be a lot of fun for you guys to see how the videos have evolved from back then. So while you guys watch that, I'll just finish up here at work. Hi guys! So, I can't seem to agree with myself whether this is day 12 or day 13. But hey, I guess that's just one of the benefits of having an extended holiday. You sort of forget time. And I'll probably figure it out by the time I upload the video. As you can tell, it's a nice sunny day. We've got a little bit of wind. I've got my general all the way out and I've got my main up, and we are doing roughly 3 knots. And seeing as the weather is such an awful mess today, I thought it might be a fitting day to start reading this. It's a book called Storm Tactics by Lynn and Larry Paraday. I've been looking forward to reading this for a long time. It's supposed to be very good. Right now I'm heading towards the island of Knudshode. There's supposed to be an excellent little anchorage there where I hope to spend the night. And I'll start reading my book, and I guess I'll get back to it once I'm at anchor. Okay, here we are at the Germans. Here we are at the anchorage. It appears the anchor has set okay. I just swam out and had a look, and it's in there pretty good. I'm anchored at 3 meters of water, and I've put out roughly 15 meters of road, so I don't know, it should be okay. So what do you guys think about that video? That was a lot of fun, right? But yeah, the weekend is finally here, although it is too late today for me to head down to Athena and get started. So I'll just see you guys tomorrow morning, bright and early. Good morning, guys. It is Saturday morning. I've got a little bit of housekeeping to take care of before I'm ready to get down to all of the fun stuff I'm going to be doing today. But luckily, on camera, it shouldn't take long. Ta-da! A bit of tidying up makes all the difference in the world. With that boring task out of the way, what am I going to be doing here aboard the boat this weekend? Well, since last weekend I finished painting this piece of plywood, and this of course goes inside the locker above the chat table, and this will hold part of my DC installation. So I'm going to put this up this weekend, but before I can do that I need to insulate the hull in there, so that is on the to-do list for this weekend. And also I want to start working on this area up here in the aft cabin. And by that area I'm of course referring to the bare fiberglass that's up here. That doesn't look very neat and it's not easy to keep clean, so I'll have to do something about that. The way they've dealt with that issue from the yard was simply just to adhere a 6mm piece of plywood to the area, like you can see here where the port light is missing. Now that is a pretty straightforward and simple solution, so I'm just gonna copy that. Although I am gonna make one slight modification, and that is to add a bit of insulation to this area here. 6mm of plywood on its own is not really that great of an insulator, but that doesn't change the shape of the piece of plywood that'll cover up this area here, and that's fortunate because that means I can go ahead and cut it now, which means it'll be ready for when I move Athena into that shed I mentioned a few weeks back. As soon as I move Athena into the shed, I'm gonna be crazy busy removing the old teak deck and drying out the hull. But while I'm in there, I'd also like to replace this port light and this port light over here. But for me to be able to do that, I need to have this area figured out. And the more put break I can get done now, the better. But we'll get back to this area in just a few minutes, because first there's a bit of fiberglassing I need to take care of. Although just removing this annoying little piece of foam is probably well worth the time. So crusty. As you can see, I've put down a bit of plastic here and put some tape on the sides of the tiny locker. And of course that is because this is the area I'm going to be messing around with fiberglass to cover up the supports for that lovely piece of painted plywood I showed you in the beginning of this video. By doing this today, I should be able to put the insulation and that piece of plywood up tomorrow. While tidying up aboard Obelix a few weeks back, I found some old leftover fiberglass that I'd forgotten I'd ever purchased, but yeah, this should do quite nicely. Before I mix up the epoxy, I'm gonna cut all the pieces of fiberglass I'll need, and to help me do that, I've made a small template out of some cardboard here, just to give me the rough size. Let's see if this will do. Now I am not 100% sure I actually need to add this fiberglass because the supports are adhered very well to the hull, but I figured it's a lot easier to add this now than to remove the insulation later on and then try to add more fiberglass to make it stronger. So yeah, let's get busy. Epoxy, cup for mixing, stick for stirring, gloves, and a super cheap brush. I do have a bit of a hate-love relationship with these pumps for West Systems epoxy because they are very convenient, but then on the other hand they break all the time and sometimes they drip and make a huge mess. So yeah, love-hate relationship. I think I'm all set up here. I've got my fiberglass ready, I've got the epoxy, I've got plenty of gloves, and some paper towel in case I start to make a huge mess of it, and a bag for discarding the paper towels in. So yeah, let's get started. The supports for the plywood panel are all covered in fiberglass now. It was a little bit of a fiddly job because I didn't put down a fillet beforehand so that I'd have a nice smooth transition between the hull and the plywood, but for something like that it's okay. I've got a little bit of epoxy left over, but that's okay because when someone was putting up the battery charger on the other side of this bulkhead here, he or she, for that matter, might accidentally have used some slightly too long screws that then poked through. But luckily I'm not finished painting this area, so yeah, no harm, no foul. I've mixed up some thickened epoxy just using some 410, but before I apply it, I'm just gonna enlarge the holes slightly. There we go. That should give the epoxy a bit more surface to adhere to. Now this looks like a huge mess right now, but I've purposely let the epoxy sit a little bit proud because 410 is so easy to sand, and by doing it this way I won't have to come back and feather the surface a second time. With all of that yucky epoxy stuff now over with, I should be able to mount this tomorrow, which I'm very much looking forward to. Let's get back to the piece of plywood that's going to cover this area up here. I think the easiest way for me to cut this odd shape would be to make a template of it first, and most of you guys know I absolutely love making templates, so that shouldn't come as much of a surprise. Because there isn't a ton of room in there, I'm just going to cut a piece of paper roughly to size before bringing it in there. This should be a little bit more manageable. Now, let's get this up here and do the final adjustments. To keep the template under control as I go along, I'm cutting small triangular holes and then using tape to adhere the template to the fiberglass. I've got all of the template up there. The next step is to trim the bottom of it, and that doesn't need to be super accurate in this case because the bottom edge is going to get covered by a 5 centimeter wide piece of mahogany. I think that already looks a lot better than that bare unpainted fiberglass. Of course, you guys will have to imagine it being painted white and with that strip of mahogany. Now that I'm happy with the fit of my template, the next step is simply just to get a little bit trigger happy with a jigsaw. This is the piece of plywood I'm gonna use. It's 6mm thick, but it's long as all heck, so I'm gonna bring it outside. To be honest, this required a lot more trips down the ladder than I care to admit, but I finally think I've got a piece that fits. Let's go ahead and put that to the test. Yep, that is good enough. Right now it's just wedged up there, and I can always make some more adjustments once I've cut a hole for the port light that's hiding behind there. But I am going to hold off on making those adjustments until I've removed the old port light and done a test fit of the new port light to see how it fits into the old hole. I'm glad I got that piece of plywood to fit. That was actually a lot of work. The owner of the shed I'm going to move Athena into just popped by the boat, and he's going in the water on Thursday, so if I can convince the yard to move me at some point after Thursday next week, well then perhaps next weekend we'll start removing the old teak deck, which is going to be a lot of fun. But for now I'm going to have to pop out because I've got some non-boat related plans, but I'll see you guys bright and early tomorrow morning. Good morning, guys. It is Sunday morning. I feel like I might not have sounded excited enough about the fact that Athena will soon be going into a shed when I told you yesterday. As most of you guys know, the reason I am really excited about Athena going into that shed is because that is what's hopefully gonna allow me to splash her this coming fall. But for me to be able to do that, I need to fix the deck, so that means removing the old teak and painting the deck and applying some non-skid. And I also need to fix the hull, which means drying out the hull, fairing the hull, applying an extra layer of fiberglass, some primer and then some copper coat. And I also need to replace all of the old through hulls and seacocks. Needless to say, that is going to be a lot of work in a relatively short period of time, because I need to be ready to splash Athena sometime late September, early October, because after that the temperatures are going to be too low for me to continue working. So I'm going to do some very extensive planning pretty soon to hopefully meet that deadline. So far I've just color coded in the weekends and holidays, but I also have about 3 weeks off this summer that I can hopefully fit in here somewhere. The projects you guys have seen me work on for the last 6 to 8 months have been, well, I don't want to say just me killing time, but there haven't been any serious deadlines. There are now, however, so as soon as I move Athena into that shed, you guys are going to see a ton of progress in a relatively short period of time, and that should be exciting. Normally you guys don't see a lot of the prep work that goes into the projects I do here aboard Athena, and I'm not going to bore you with a ton of details now either, but these two things are kind of exciting. This is the housing for the control unit I'm going to put together that's going to control how much heat is applied to the hull, and that temperature needs to stay somewhere between 90 to 100 degrees Celsius or 194 to 212 Fahrenheit. When I was reading up online about building your own DIY version of the system that's called HotVac, I came across a blog by a guy called Roger, and it turns out he dried out his boat a few years back in the same way I'm planning to, only he did it in a much neater fashion. So I'm going to be copying what Roger did, and I'll throw in a link for his blog in the description because he does awesome work aboard his boat, and he's a really nice guy too. I've been emailing back and forth with him. One of the things I really liked about Roger's setup was the fact that he used silicone heating mats to heat the hull. And I've been in contact with a few companies that manufacture those, and I'm waiting to get some quotes back. But there's something in here I need to check. This is the through-back connector I'll use to apply a vacuum to the underside of the silicone mat. And I just need to check the size of this to make absolutely sure the hole I've spec'd in the silicone mats is big enough. Yep, 14 millimeters. That looks perfect. To be completely honest, I am so excited by the prospect of going into the shed and getting started on removing the old teak deck and drying out the hull that I'm finding it difficult to focus on anything else aboard the boat right now. But in the beginning of this video, I did mention that I was gonna put this panel up this weekend, so I'm gonna do that. Yep, the epoxy in here has cured nicely. I think the next step is just to make a quick template so that I can cut some insulation. Bam! And just like that, I've got a template. I think this template is gonna work out great. It is gonna be awfully fiddly to move it around inside that locker, but I'm sure I'll manage. And here I've got the 8mm closed cell foam I'll use for insulation. I've used a bit of masking tape to secure the template to, well, let's be honest, the camping mat. So now it should just be a matter of tracing an outline. I figured it might be a good idea to do a super quick test fit before I cover everything in sticky glue. That doesn't look half bad. Now to apply some glue. As an adhesive, I'll be using Scotch-Wilt 74. I've had good results with this stuff aboard Obelix, but just to make absolutely sure this camping mat doesn't behave any differently, I've made a small test. So let's go ahead and see what fails first, the adhesive or the mat. It doesn't look like it's the adhesive that's going to be the weak link in this chain. I'm going to apply glue to a small area at the time on both surfaces. Then I'm going to wait until the glue is tacky and then press the two together. And then I'm going to move a little bit further along. Unfortunately, this stuff stinks like you wouldn't believe. So I'm not going to be able to talk while doing this. And now we wait for about 30 seconds or so. Boom, ba-dum, boom, boom. This is very much like waiting for paint to dry, only it's not paint, it's an adhesive. Okay, we're good. No sticky stuff on the fingers. That got quite hectic and ended up in a mini clusterfuck, but at least the insulation is up there now. It would have been a lot easier for me to do this before putting up the locker, of course, but back then it was way too cold to work with any kind of adhesive, so yeah, here we are. I've run out of time for today, but I didn't want to leave you hanging without showing you the inside of the locker. Now keep in mind the installation didn't turn out as neat as I'd have liked it to, but this is what it looks like. Once I've got a few terminal blocks in there, I think it's gonna look pretty dang spiffy. I need to start rendering this video right now to be able to publish tonight. So for the next hour and a half while my laptop is humming away over in the corner, I'm gonna be tidying up the boat and making sure it's ready for next weekend. And hopefully I'll have been moved into the shed and can start removing the teak deck. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this video, guys. As always, feel free to leave a comment down below, and don't forget, if you've enjoyed the video, leave a like. See you!